car wash this weekend, but she's like, I didn't want to wait in the line because it was so long for people out there washing their cars. And I'm like, even my wife's car, I'm like, I just rinsed it off. And then I'm like, but like literally 6 hours later, it looked like it was completely covered again. But yeah, I feel like I do that a lot. I wash a lot of things off with the hose almost every other day. And it's just like a rite of passage. You know, people will send me emails and messages on, online. Hey, they want to know when the pollen's over because they want to power wash their back porch. And me personally, I probably power wash the back porch 2 or 3 times during the spring. I do one at the beginning to get the winter junk off, and then I do it halfway just to knock the pine pollen, and then I do one final one when pollen season is finally over. There's really no other way to do it if you want to enjoy your porch, because you're just going to have to sit in pine pollen for weeks and weeks until it's completely done.
Yeah, there's not much to slow it down. We're not really getting the rain. One thing that'll be interesting, we are going to have some colder mornings, so we're forecasting some upper 30s, mid 30s the next couple of days. That might slow it down a little bit. And just talking about the chill again, I keep getting a lot of questions from people, I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
When is the last frost? And for our area up in Greensboro, typically that's early April, like the first week of April.
Yeah.
You guys are probably earlier than that, right? By like a week maybe?
Yeah, we have the rule, we use the tax day rule around here, April 15th, just because 99.8% of all our frost and freezes have happened on or before that date. So I still, but you're right, our average last frost is like April 10th, but our average last freeze is March 28th, which is coming up next week. So we're actually still pretty early in this setup. And you mentioned that, that front Saturday morning. I think Sunday morning, with high pressure behind that front, we might have some patchy frost, especially away from the city. So, people want to plant early. I get it. I love my garden. I love being out in the yard. But it just means you have to do more of this, like covering up. So if you wait just a couple more weeks, even if you wait till early April, at least you reduce the chances of there being another frost or freeze. And unlike these warm spells, which have been days and days and days, it only takes one night, Tim, of a cold snap to ruin those plants. It could be right back to warm the next day, but the plant's ruined.
It's true. And so, the next couple of weeks, probably if you're, a farmer or something, we'll have a few more nervous times. But overall, hopefully the worst is behind us. We had 20s just last week. Remember, we were in the 20s before we got up into the 80s throughout the weekend. That's probably over with.
Yeah, I just want to get some rain. That would be a first step. Thanks, everybody. That's all the time we have for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you stick around for more news here on WFMY and WCNC+.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us for Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We've got quite a few live feeds we're following right now, a lot of meetings that are happening with municipal leaders, if you will, around the Charlotte area. We do want to start with a live feed we've been watching for the last couple of hours. Charlotte City Council, they are discussing an item at this point. One of the bigger items, though, we're expecting tonight, a vote on repairs to Bojangles Coliseum, $25 million for improvements to that complex. You might remember that the Coliseum recently experienced some roof leaks, which caused some hiccups for events earlier this year. Let's go ahead and listen in right now to that council meeting.
What they are modifying in the ordinance, and they then provide public benefits essentially as a justification for their modifications. So I'll go ahead and show you the list of their provisions. So this is pretty technical in nature, so I'm not going to get into it, but I'll have it here if we want to get back to it. But some of the items that they're modifying, for example, are maximum building length along a frontage, or maximum parking for a medical office use, minimum ground floor height. And they note how they're modifying this standard and also what is the typical UDO requirement for that. The public benefits that they are providing in exchange. So under the public amenity category, they will be installing a trailhead connection to the UNC Charlotte Fitness Trail. That would contain bench seating, trail map signage, and trail lighting. Under the city improvement category, they would be providing a micro-transit area on the site to include dedicated curb space for rideshare, waiting pad consistent with CAT's detail standards. And under the city improvement category, they'd be constructing a bus stop waiting pad and shelter at the existing bus stop along North Tryon. So that would be exceeding the ordinance requirements since they have a bus stop waiting pad, and CATS wouldn't typically require them to upgrade that to a full waiting pad and shelter as they are specifying. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of a minor technical revision. We believe that the exception provisions requested make sense, and the public benefits offered are adequate justification given the request of this rezoning petition. Again, healthcare institutions don't always fit into neat and tidy boxes, so I think an exception application to this petition is logical. And I'll take questions following petitioner comments.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. We have 4 speakers signed up. John Carmichael, Bennett Thompson, Joseph Labowitz, and Nathan Tidd. Mr. Carmichael,
thank you,
3 minutes.
Thank you, Councilmember Driggs, members of City Council and the Zoning Committee. I'm John Carmichael, here on behalf of the petitioner, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Hospital Authority, also known as Atrium Health. Bennett Thompson and Joe Labowitz with Atrium are here, as is Nathan Tidd with Kimley Horn. The site's a little over 41 acres, northeast corner of North Tryon and East W.T. Harris Boulevard. UNC Charlotte is to the east and north. University Place shops are to the west, and you've got variety of commercial and retail to the south. This is an aerial photograph of the site. Got a little zoomed in aerial of the site, and I will say that the site is the home of Atrium Health University City Hospital. And it's hard to see, but this is the existing bed tower. It's located in the central portion of the site. The site is currently zoned IC1 as highly indicated. You've got IC1 zoning to the east and north, TOD zoning to the north and west, and a variety of commercial districts to the west and south of the site. Petitioners requesting the site be rezoned to IC2EX to accommodate the expansion of the hospital facilities. The approval of the rezoning request would increase the allowed maximum height of buildings on the site. The maximum height in IC1 is 50 feet without a bonus, 80 feet with a bonus. In IC2, it's 120 feet without a bonus, 250 feet with a bonus. The current expansion plan is to build a new bed tower as an addition to the existing bed tower. The new bed tower would be approximately the same height as the existing bed tower, 90 to 100 feet, and would contain 6 stories so that it could connect to the existing bed tower. The new bed tower is needed to meet the healthcare requirements of the community. This rezoning request would also accommodate future planned or future expansions of the hospital facilities. This is a photograph of the existing bed tower. And then, of course, the addition would connect to that structure. The 2040 policy map places the site in the campus place type. This request is consistent with the 2040 policy map. I want to give you a little context here. Prior to the effective date of the UDO, this site was zoned institutional. And under the institutional zoning district, you could build, without going through a rezoning, by right, the bed tower that Atrium seeks to build. When the UDO became effective, the zoning was converted from institutional to IC1. IC1 has a more restrictive height than institutional, because institutional, you can increase the height if you increase the side yards. That's not available in IC1. So the UDOs really put healthcare institutions in a tough spot. So we had to rezone to IC2EX to exceed 80 feet, and we'd have to have a bonus with 80 feet. And then we need exceptions because the certain development standards are more urban in nature, and that doesn't accommodate a hospital. We're happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Ms. Mayo.
I had a quick question, Holly. Is this by the old university library? Is that, okay, thank you. I think that's an interesting topic to think about, how we're reusing existing areas instead of always just cutting down trees. So I'm excited to hear that we're thinking about reusing existing areas instead of just clear cutting and diminishing our tree canopy.
Thank you. So I don't want to miss an opportunity to thank Atrium Health for their role in our community and their many contributions. It's not a land use issue, but just want to point it out. Is there a certificate of need issue here?
Yes. Joe Labovitz, president of the hospital, said yes.
Right.
I mean,
Again, that's not a land use consideration. I'm just interested to know whether that's pending or where you stand.
Thank you. Yes, Joe Labovitz, president of Atrium Health, University City. And yes, we have a conditional certificate of need that was granted. It's currently in the process of being converted from conditional to full.
Great. Thank you for that information. As I say, that's actually not a land use criterion, but if I have no further comments, I'll entertain a motion to end the hearing, close the hearing.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor? Hey, JD, in favor?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
It's Monday.
I know, already. We're struggling.
So we move to agenda item 25, rezoning petition 2025-138 by Coral Reef Investment Properties, a location approximately 8.62 acres located along the east side of West Ivola Road, south of South Tryon Street, and west of Sleepy Hollow Road in Ms. Mayo's district. Current zoning is R17 MF CD, multifamily conditional. Proposed zoning is R17 MF CD SPA. So I assume this is grandfathered, like this is an old petition?
There are some amendments.
Okay. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and Mr. Oliver.
Yes, this is a site plan amendment to an existing conditional plan under the legacy zoning ordinance. It's a 8.62 acre site on the east side of West Ivola Road, just south of South Tryon Street. The plan proposes to change a previously approved multifamily residential plan. The site is currently undeveloped. Current zoning is R17 MF CD, multifamily conditional. The proposed zoning is R17 MF CD SPA, which is a site plan amendment to that existing plan. The plan is consistent with the goals and policies of the Southwest Middle Community Area Plan, and it is in alignment with the 2040 policy map recommendation for the Neighborhood 2 place type. A little background, 2022, the petition 2021-235 was rezoned to R17 MF CD to allow for the development of 129 multifamily apartment dwelling units. including 6 workforce housing units, and that would be in 3 principal structures. The site plan amendment calls for the reduction in the number of multifamily stacked buildings from 3 principal structures to 2, increase the maximum number of apartment units from 129 to 134, including an increase in the workforce housing units from 6 to 7, the removal of a pedestrian connection between West Tybola Road and Sleepy Hollow Road, and the modification of the site access by shifting the northern driveway on West Tybola approximately 200 feet to the south. Staff recommends approval of this petition as the site plan. It's a site plan amendment to a previously approved plan with only minor changes. And the proposal is consistent with the 2040 policy maps recommendation for the neighborhood 2 place type. The site is also abutting a park and is served by transit. I'm happy to take any questions following Ms. Grant's presentation.
Thank you. I'd like to note briefly there's some empty chairs here. Some colleagues go to the room behind the chamber here and follow the hearing on a screen because there are refreshments there and it's a comfortable place to sit, so they're definitely engaged.
They're weak.
I would like to.
Kidding, love y'all.
I would like to
All
note
the
for,
newbies and you, Vic.
That means come back, is what he's saying.
well, I would like to note for anybody who may be there, we have a closed session after this meeting, so please do not leave the building. And with that, we have, I believe, one speaker signed up, Bridget Grant. There she is. Hi.
Good evening, Councilmember Driggs, members of the board. I appreciate your time this evening. Max did a phenomenal job of presenting, so I'm just going to jump ahead to our summary slide. It worked.
He called you out.
Councilmember May was able to attend our community meeting, and so we were able to make some changes, not only in the response to our site changes, but also in response to community feedback, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Oh, you know, like they. Oh, Dante's back.
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by my neighbor here.
I'm sorry.
I gave a brief presentation, so you didn't miss
You're
it.
all done?
Yeah, I'm ready to answer any
Gotcha.
questions.
She said we're done?
Great.
Councilmember Mayo was I did go, yeah.
23 seconds.
Yeah, I just had a quick
record.
question. I think I asked Holly earlier. Have y'all thought of helping with a crosswalk so that people can get to the Yorkmount Park that's not far away? I think for the people on the other side of Tybola. Is that something y'all would think about, Bridget?
We haven't had that chance to have that conversation. I think it would probably depend on what's feasible along that site. We've got connectivity with the sidewalks along our site that go directly up, but I understand you're asking for across the street.
If possible, I think that would be a great opportunity just for us to think about connectivity when we're thinking about Vision Zero as well. How are we being proactive when we're having these rezonings to think about, our green spaces and people having access to our green spaces in a way that's safe? Thank you.
Seeing no other comment, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? That carries. Good. Okay. Our penultimate hearing. Item number 26, rezoning petition 2025-139 by Averett Express. Approximately 53.24 acres located on the north side of Shopton Road, west of Beam Road in Ismail's district. Current zoning is I-1 CD, ANDO, Light Industrial Conditional Airport Noise Disclosure Overlay. Proposed zoning is ML2 CD, ANDO, Manufacturing and Logistics 2 Conditional Airport Noise Disclosure Overlay. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of a requested technical revision. Yes, Mr. Magner.
Good evening. This site is about 53 acres located on the north side of Shopton Road, west of Beam Road. The site is graded, was part of the 2021 rezoning that encompassed this site as well as about 50 acres to the north and entitled it for light industrial uses. The site's surrounded by a mix of uses, other industrial, commercial, as well as institutional uses. Closest residential uses are across Shopton Road to the south. The current zoning is I-1 CD. It's within the Airport Noise Disclosure Overlay with a proposed zoning of ML2 CD ANDO. The 2040 policy map recommends the manufacturing and logistics place type. The proposal would expand industrial uses permitted on the site to allow a limited number of ML2 uses, and specifically a vehicle operations facility. Would allow for a maximum building square footage of 180,000 square feet, while prohibiting the most noxious ML2 uses. Access would be both from Shopton Road as well as from Beam Road through a connection through the site to the north. A 100-foot Class A landscape yard, which could be reduced to 75 feet with a berm, would be adjacent to an institutional use in the southeastern corner of the site. Also, a 50-foot Class C landscape yard along the site's Shopton Road frontage, where across the street from single-family residential. The petition commits to dedication of the floodplain to Mecklenburg County for future Coffee Creek Greenway. The petition is consistent with the goals and policies of the Southwest Middle Community Area Plan and is in alignment with the policy map recommendation for the manufacturing and logistics place type. Does not directly facilitate priority goals for Southwest Middle Community Area Plan, however, does or could facilitate Goal 8 for diverse and resilient economic opportunity from a comprehensive plan perspective. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of a requested technical revision. The site is entitled for light industrial uses. The petition would expand the permitted industrial uses while reducing the building footprint on the site. Most of the noxious uses permitted in ML2 would be prohibited while allowing for a vehicle operations facility. The site is located within the airport noise disclosure overlay and provides appropriate buffering to adjacent institutional and residential uses. I'll turn it over to the development team.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
All right, before we get deeper into this item on the agenda for Charlotte City Council, we'll take a break here on Live Impact. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more of the discussion. All right, folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. We're going to turn back to the Charlotte City Council meeting. They are considering some petitions for rezoning. Let's listen in right now.
Okay, so we trundle along now to the last one for tonight. Rezoning petition 2025-140. by Excel Financial Services, Inc., approximately .43 acres located east of Sandy Porter Road, north of Camden Creek Lane, and south of Sandy River Lane in Council District 3, Ms. Mayo's district. Current zoning N2B, Neighborhood 2B. Proposed zoning CAC 1 CD, Community Action Center, Activity Center 1, conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition. Mr. Oliver.
Yes, petition 2025-140 is .43 acres located on the east side of Sandy Porter Road, just west of South Tryon Street. Petition proposes an adaptive reuse of a single-family home for activities permitted in the Community Activity Center zoning district. Site is currently developed with a single-family home. Current zoning is N2B, Neighborhood 2. Proposed zoning is CAC 1 CD, Community Activity Center conditional. The plan is consistent with the goals and policies of the Southwest Outer Community Area Plan. However, it is not in alignment with the 2040 policy map recommendation for the Neighborhood 1 place type, and I'll elaborate on that more in a moment. The proposal allows for the adaptive reuse of the existing structure to accommodate uses permitted by right and under prescribed conditions in the Community Activity Center district, such as personal services, office, medical, dental office, etc. But it prohibits certain uses that may be incompatible with the neighborhood, such as automotive-oriented uses such as vehicle fueling facilities, drive-throughs, car rental facilities, parking lots as a principal use, etc. However, while it is consistent with the plan, but not in alignment with the policy map, it would be a minor map amendment to that policy map. It's consistent with the goals and the policies of the Southwest Outer Community Area Plan, as it meets the minor map amendment criteria, such as a minimum acreage when you combine it with the other Community Activity Center place type that's surrounding it to the southeast and to the north. It's adjacent to Neighborhood 2 place type and zoning, both across the street and surrounding it. And it's less than a quarter mile from multiple bus routes. The proposed plan could help facilitate the Southwest Outer Community Area Plan priority goal of a 10-minute neighborhood by expanding access to goods and services for area residents. And the program guide provides additional information on how the policies recommended by the adopted community area plans would update the policy map. Staff recommends approval of this petition as it meets the minor map amendment criteria and supports the shift to a community activity center, enabling a wider mix of retail, office, medical, and service uses. Sites surrounded by other community activity center place type, Neighborhood 2 place type and zoning, and it has access to transit. I'm happy to take any questions following the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. We have one speaker signed up, Dolores Leith. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Dolores Leith. I am the president of Excel Financial Services and representing the petition for 2500 Sandy Porter Road to be rezoned to CAC 1. When I purchased this property, it was approximately, I would say, about 15 years ago, and at the time, it was very residential there. The apartments behind the property currently were not there. The gas station at the corner of Sandy Porter and Tryon were not. South Tryon was not there. There was, I believe, the Dunkin' Donuts was built not long after, but overall, it really had a residential feel to it. With time, and I would say over the last 5, 7 years, 8 years, it has changed dramatically. And what I've found is that it is increasingly difficult for me to keep good tenants in it. You know, people don't want to be there if they have kids, because this property is the first residential property in a line of residential properties. They have built the school down the road. There is a community facility across the street. There is a restaurant bar next door, as well as those apartments behind the property. So I'm asking that we rezone it. I do believe that bringing the rezoning would help the community because we're looking to open a professional services establishment that would be open to the community and it would be by appointment only. So right now, traffic is a huge issue in the area, but it would be by appointment only, and we do have enough space. We're going to use the building that we have. We have enough space to provide for parking on site, and we would be able to offer things like nails, hair salon, facials, that sort of thing. So it would be personal services establishments, and I'm open to any questions.
So thank you, Ms. Lee.
Ms. Mayo has a question.
Any comments? Yes.
Hi, how are you? I'm just hoping that you'll get a chance to talk to the Still Creek Residents Association. So they have mentioned that they have not heard about this petition. I've consulted with the planning staff. If you could get with Holly and her team, or I believe Joe Mangum is helping with, no, it's not, Joe is on, when you look at the paperwork. But if you can get with Javier Lopez from the Still Creek Residents Association and please present to them your petition, I think that would be helpful for me as I'm talking about that with my colleagues. Thank you.
Yeah, I will say that they were on the mailing list.
Sorry, there wasn't a question.
Yeah, that was just asking her to.
Okay.
Thank you.
We appreciate your coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I make a motion to.
Oh, we're closing the
Close the hearing.
Or to close the hearing. Yeah.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Okay, so that's the last hearing for tonight.
Thanks.
We do have a closed session, so do you need to read then the motion to go into closed session?
Okay. Is there a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A4 to discuss matters related to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, including...
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Order, please. Order.
Just some businesses coming.
89.
Colin. You're still in-
All right, so we're hearing the Charlotte City Council set to go into closed session now to discuss some business potentials here. We'll take another break here on Live Impact. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more. All right, folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. We're turning now to the very latest briefing from NTSB officials within the last, I'd say, hour and a half ago. They gave us the very latest on that deadly LaGuardia plane crash, which took the lives of 2 pilots. Let's go ahead and listen in as NTSB Chair Jennifer Homedy gives some updates on that collision.
NTSB NTSB, as some of you may know, is an independent federal agency that's charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation accident in the United States, as well as significant events in other modes of transportation. We are independent. We are not part of the U.S. Department of Transportation, and why that is important to mention is that as part of our investigation, we also have oversight authority in the investigation over the Federal Aviation Administration. We're here to investigate a collision between a Bombardier CRJ 900 with an aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicle while the aircraft was landing at LaGuardia last night around 11:37 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The airplane was operated by Jazz Aviation, doing business as Air Canada Express, Flight 8646. It had 72 passengers on board and 4 crew on board. 2 firefighters were in the firefighting vehicle. I want to just take a moment and, on behalf of the entire National Transportation Safety Board, express our deepest condolences to those who lost loved ones in this terrible tragedy. We also know others have suffered injury, and our sympathies are with each of you as well. I will mention we have 5 members of our Transportation Disaster Assistance Team here on scene, as well as the chief of our Transportation Disaster Assistance Division. They work in concert with the American Red Cross, and thank you to the American Red Cross, to provide resources and information about our investigation and what we are doing to the those who lost loved ones, or those survivors or families of survivors throughout the investigation, not just here on scene, but as we move forward with our investigation through the final board meeting and sometimes after. We also expect to have around 25 specialists on site here on scene. That is in addition to many employees at the NTSB who are supporting this investigation back at headquarters in Washington, D.C. The team in total began to arrive at 3:10 a.m. Some are still en route, which means that we have not had a full day of investigation here today. And I think that's important because there are a lot of questions, and I understand there are a lot of questions. I've heard them on air traffic control. I've heard questions on the tower. I've heard questions on air traffic control communications. I've heard questions on the vehicle, many questions. And I know that you all have those questions, but I just want to set expectations. We have LaGuardia that was shut down. We had a ground stop at Newark today. And then we have DHS that shut down, and we have long TSA lines. We have our air traffic control specialist who was in line with TSA for 3 hours until we called in Houston to beg to see if we can get her through so we can get her here. So it's been a really big challenge to get the entire team here, and they're still arriving as I speak. Right up until about, I think the latest I saw was midnight, maybe 1 a.m. tomorrow morning. So it is a long travel day for many of those, and many are arriving by sure plane. We have had many that have come here by train, and certainly automobile. We drove up, a number of us. So with that said, I do want to talk a little bit about what we were able to do today. We did a walking inspection of the scene. And we have a site commander doing a really important job, which is a safety walkthrough of the scene to make sure that our safety investigators or our investigators are safe while they are on scene. There is a tremendous amount of debris from taxiway Delta across runway 4 into some other areas. It's pretty expansive, and we want to make sure, because as you're walking around, you can get injured. There's also hazardous materials, of course, on the firefighting vehicle itself, so we want to make sure their safety. In addition, obviously the tail of this aircraft is on the ground, and in order to get to the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, the Port Authority and the emergency responders cut a hole on the roof of the aircraft, dropped down, and was able to get the CVR and FDR for us, which then one of our investigators drove back to our labs in Washington, D.C. today, where they've been able to at least verify that the cockpit voice recorder was not damaged. They'll begin work on the FDR, the flight data recorder, tomorrow. And hopefully we'll have information to share. My hope is that we'll have information to share on that tomorrow in a press conference. We also began to collect information from FAA and others, certainly on air traffic control staffing in the tower, communications training. We're looking for information today from the Fire and Rescue Department on their crew and on their vehicles, what the capabilities were of their vehicles, and everything from how much they weighed to what they were carrying. And then we began to form our investigative groups for this investigation. So we have an operations group that we have formed, and that will look at the operator itself as well as procedures and training for the aircraft. We will have a systems investigative group. That group will examine the components of the airplane's hydraulic, electrical, navigational, pneumatic, and associated systems, including instruments and flight control system. We have a structures group that will be documenting the airframe wreckage and the accident scene, including calculating impact angles. And we have an air traffic control investigative group, as well as, I mentioned, a cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder group. And finally, we'll have an airport operations and survival factors combined group. That group will look at the airport rescue and firefighting operations at the airport, and they will look at injuries to occupants as it relates to the dynamics of this crash. I mentioned we have the CVR and FDR. We've also collected and have continued to collect surveillance video. We've asked the Federal Aviation Administration, who will be providing that a ASD replay of the event, ASD Airport Surface Detection Equipment replay of the event. And that is actually looking at the ASD display that was provided to the controller. And so we will be looking at that, where we can see where the aircraft was at certain times and whether the truck was visible on ASD. We'll also be getting an ASD analysis from the FAA's Tech Center. That will provide us information on whether alerts were generated and other data, including distance of the aircraft that was landing on runway 4 as the firefighting vehicle was approaching the runway from taxiway Delta. With that, I'm going to take some questions, but again, I just want to be clear.
All right, and folks, before we get to the Q&A session with reporters and NTSB Chair Jennifer Hamady on the LaGuardia crash from late last night, we'll take a break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with the rest of that session. All right, folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. We'll turn now to this NTSB press conference on late last night, that deadly LaGuardia plane crash where a plane collided with a fire truck on a runway, killing 2 pilots and injuring dozens of others. We're now in the question and answer portion of this press conference with reporters. We'll listen in now.
Have a lot of questions, you have a lot of detailed questions, and you want that information. I hope to provide more of that information tomorrow. I won't be able to provide a lot of that information tonight. We have a lot of data right now, a lot of information, including information on tower staffing. But the NTSB deals in facts. We don't speculate. We don't take one person at their word. We verify that information carefully before we provide it. So that is something we still have to do. With that, I'll take that. Can you provide your name and affiliation?
I'm actually Secretary of State. Can you articulate a few of the unanswered questions and your speed answers to that, particularly with regard to the traffic control?
Can I articulate some of the remaining questions that we have, particularly, well, for this investigation, for the accident itself, and particularly related to air traffic control? You know, at this stage of the investigation, we don't limit ourselves. So we have questions on everything. And we look for everything, we collect everything. We may have information that comes our way that we didn't expect, so we don't rule anything out until later. So we have a lot of questions on everything. Yes.
On the tower, can you at least tell us how many controllers were in the tower? Was that air traffic controller that we have all now heard that audio? Was that, and also ground control and air traffic control at the same time? Give us any information about the pilots, how much experience they have.
Yeah, the question is, can I provide information regarding staffing in the tower? Can I provide information on who or what position the controller held that was communicating? And can I provide information about the pilot backgrounds at this time? Not at this time. I will have that information tomorrow. Do we have information? Yes. But we need to verify that information before we provide it. It's just preliminary information, and we aren't able to provide it yet. We still have to do it. The question is, how do we go about verifying it? We have to look at records. There's sign-in sheets. We have to do interviews. We have to look at time cards. There's a lot of information that and then official records from the airline. So that is information we always have to corroborate. David, and then I'm going to come over here.
Dave Shepardson from Reuters. Can you tell us where the Air Canada Express plane was in the sky when the controller gave the order to let the aircraft cross? And can you say anything about the experience level of controllers? Because these are experienced controllers.
The question is where was the aircraft when the controller gave clearance for the truck, the firefighting truck, to cross, and what was and the experience of the controllers. The experience of the controllers we still have to look at on where the aircraft was. That is actually part of what we hope to get from the FDR, which we'll get hopefully tomorrow, the flight data recorder, but then also from the ASDI analysis that the tech center will provide us.
Did the pilots follow all the instructions that the FAA?
The question is, did the pilots follow all the instructions? We still have to have the cockpit voice recorder verified and analyzed by all the group members before we can provide any information on that. Yes?
How long have the controllers been involved in the incident? How long is on shift prior to the collision? And how long do you remain on shift after the collision?
The question is on the shift of the controllers. Again, this was a mid-shift. Typically, and again, I'm just going to say this preliminarily, it could be different tomorrow. The shift might run 10:30 to 6 a.m., but we have to verify that, and we have to verify how long the controllers were on before they took over and when the shift change was.
What is protocol in a situation
situation like this for both parties, meaning the plane and the air traffic controller? And secondly, can you confirm that there was a crew member that was ejected from the plane at impact?
The question is, well, first let me, there was a question on whether there was a crew member ejected on impact. We don't answer those questions. I would refer you to the chief medical examiner for New York City. That person can answer those questions. We don't comment on, fatalities or injuries at this stage. And your other question was what protocols exist between, say, airport operations and with respect to firefighting and aircraft landing. That is part of our investigation, and we'll be looking at that throughout this investigation.
Palmer, Pixel 11. 2 questions. I know you can't say specifically last night, but in general, how many people are in air traffic control on that 10:30 to 6 a.m. shift at LaGuardia? And second question.
Well, hold on. The question is how many are on shift typically. That's still something we have to verify with our air traffic control team.
And then is there an estimate about when runway 4 might reopen? So I know you have to get out there and look at it, but is it then move what you can off there? So are we talking 24 hours, 48?
The question is, how long will that runway be closed for us to conduct our investigation? It's going to take some time. I just want to express how much there is a lot of debris. We need to go through all of that and to figure out what we need to take back to the NTSB, to our labs, what we might want to collect. First and foremost, what we need to take pictures of to document that evidence. That's all evidence. And we need to document that first. Then we need to collect some of that evidence. Then we get to that. It's going to be days.
Been out for a week?
I'm not sure.
2 more questions?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Willow to Canadian Press. How do you work with Canadian investigative authorities? When are they set to arrive, and what kind of information is shared with them?
Yeah, so we'll be working with the Transport Safety Board of Canada, and we work with ICAO under Annex 13. So the Transport Safety Board of Canada is the state of, will come from Canada to represent Canada, and they'll have technical advisors with them from the operator and I believe from the manufacturer as well. And we coordinate on scene just like other investigations, just like we would participate in foreign investigations as well. They are also part of our team for fact finding.
Next question.
Last one.
Can you speak on either what's currently happening or what will happen in the near future with the air traffic controller that was involved in this incident?
Can I speak to what would happen? So I think the question is what is currently happening with that air traffic controller. Typically, they would be removed from duty, and certainly it's pretty traumatic for that air traffic controller as well, and we'll want to interview that air traffic controller as well as others that were in the tower or maybe not even in the tower. With respect to what that individual is doing right now, I would have to refer that to the Federal Aviation Administration. Again, that was the last question. I understand that you have a lot of questions and want detailed information, but I just want to remind you that what would happen if I gave you wrong information, unverified information right now? You would do an entire story on unverified information, and tomorrow I'd have to tell you it's wrong, and then you'd be mad at me again for different reasons. So what I'm going to tell you is we are world-renowned investigators, but we deal in facts, and if we are not able to verify those yet, and we haven't been able to, we can't provide those. We have a lot of information, but we need to be able to verify that information and provide it to you. We will do our best to provide you as much information as possible tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll keep you updated as that investigation into that deadly plane crash continues. You probably noticed at the bottom right corner of the screen for several moments just now, we were following this live look at the U.S. Senate floor. That is where we are expecting tonight a vote on the confirmation of Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, who is President Trump's pick to lead the DHS, as the DHS secretary. So we're looking in live right now. It sounds like we don't really have a lot of audio going, but we're going to monitor this. We do expect this vote to happen sometime this evening. So bear with us. We'll watch this feed, and as we come back from break, we may even check in if we start to see any more activity. For now, though, a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more Live Impact News. Folks, welcome back as we're following this breaking feed of the U.S. Senate floor. We understand that sometime tonight they are expected to take a vote on confirmation of DHS Secretary nominee Mark Wayne Mullen to be the actual secretary replacing Kristi Noem. Let's listen in. Sounds like we have a little bit of activity. Okay, we just lost the activity. But we'll watch it, and we'll bring you any developments as soon as we hear them start to talk about that. Meantime, speaking of the Senate, we did see Senator Chuck Schumer discussing today that deadly LaGuardia plane crash, as well as another big topic of discussion that we're seeing amongst many folks tonight, the fact that there are ICE agents who've now been deployed to assist TSA agents as we are seeing this partial government shutdown lingering. And many TSA agents either calling out or quitting as they are, at this point, still working without pay. Let's listen in right now to the senator.
First, Mr. President, let me begin today by saying that my deepest prayers are with the families of the two pilots who were killed in terrible collision at LaGuardia Airport this morning. The video and audio of the collision were heart-wrenching. It's like a punch to the stomach when you listen to it. It leaves you gasping for air. I spoke with Chairwoman Hamidi of the National Transportation Safety Board, which has always done an outstanding job, impartial, in investigating these tragedies. And I spoke to her. I spoke to Chair Hamidi earlier today, and she told me the situation is under investigation. She told me that over 25 investigators are on their way to LaGuardia right now to get to the bottom of what happened. We owe it to those pilots and their families to find out exactly how this accident was permitted to happen. And I will remain in constant communication with Chair Hamidi and the NTSB, as well as local authorities as the investigation unfolds. My heart goes out to all of those affected by this tragedy. My heart goes out to the 2 pilots who were killed and to all the passengers who were injured at LaGuardia. Okay, on Homeland Security talks. Over the weekend, and for weeks now, Democrats have engaged Republicans in good faith to pay our TSA workers, to fund DHS, while also enacting common-sense safeguards to rein in ICE. Both sides talked all weekend long. We had some constructive conversations, but there's considerably more work to be done, and Democrats are ready to keep negotiating. Democrats believe TSA staff should be paid now. We tried to move forward this weekend to pay these workers, but Republicans have blocked pay for TSA workers in a roll call vote where they all voted no on Saturday. And additionally, they have blocked pay for TSA workers 7 times when Democrats tried to bring it up. It's preposterous because the chaos at our airports is simply unacceptable. Still, Democrats are going to keep working in good faith. Donald Trump, meanwhile, is trying to sabotage negotiations, demanding that talks stop entirely until Congress passes the SAVE Act, a bill that has nothing to do with paying TSA workers and nothing to do with ending the shutdown. That's right. Donald Trump is now saying we'll pay TSA only after Congress passes voter suppression. What a ridiculous thing to do. What a callous thing to do. He doesn't give a damn about the American people. He cares about his own election. He thinks this SAVE Act, which isn't going to pass, will change how the election comes out, and he uses millions and millions of Americans as hostages. How can our Republican friends on the other side of the aisle go along with this? It stinks on its face. You don't need any deeper explanation. This morning, unfortunately, Trump doubled down in Memphis, saying explicitly as possible he won't pay TSA workers and he won't end this shutdown until the SAVE Act is passed. Let's make it very clear. Donald Trump is the one standing in the way of paychecks for TSA workers with the ridiculous attempt to pass the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act, which would destroy a lot of what we know about democracy. The SAVE Act, which would disenfranchise 20 million American citizens, in all likelihood, from voting in the next election. The SAVE Act, which is designed to do, as Kirsty Noem said, to allow people to vote who we like how they vote, as opposed to others. Well, Donald Trump, your latest temper tantrum is not going to work. The SAVE Act does not have the votes to pass this chamber, and Democrats will fight it every step of the way. The SAVE Act has nothing to do with DHS, Homeland Security. It has nothing to do with TSA workers or making sure ICE follows the same rules as every other federal law enforcement agency in the country. Every other law enforcement agency uses warrants when they bust into, needs a warrant when they bust into your home. Every other law enforcement agency doesn't wear masks. Trump and the Republicans are insisting that continue, and they're saying we're holding TSA workers and millions and millions of passengers hostage. And now all of a sudden, in addition to that, Trump says, I won't move forward unless we pass the SAVE Act, which isn't going to happen, Mr. Trump. It is not going to happen. Democrats' position has not changed. We want to pay TSA workers today. We're ready to meet with the White House today to keep talking. In fact, we were going to meet this morning with Tom Homan, but apparently the White House pulled that meeting because of Donald Trump's temper tantrum. They're all scrambling around there in the White House. They don't know what to do. Their boss, the president, comes out with these idiotic statements every day, whether it's related to the war in Iran, where he contradicts himself, whether it's related to the SAVE Act, where he doesn't even know what it does, or related to what's happening in Homeland Security. We hope that Donald Trump will stop derailing these talks and let negotiations continue. Democrats want to be reasonable, and we're going to keep working in good faith to reach a solution. We need to pay TSA workers ASAP. The American people want ICE to change its violent ways. They do not want a repeat kind of violence we saw earlier this year in Minnesota. They certainly do not want to see ICE detaining passengers at airports and making things work. Donald Trump is tying himself in a triple knot on the Iran war, on the SAVE Act, and on TSA workers. And he tightens that knot around his waist last night by saying ICE should go to the airports, and then by saying that he would not go forward unless SAVE Act passed. He's making it harder and harder for himself. He's making himself less and less popular with the American people, and he's causing tens of millions to wonder what is going on in that man's head. So, that's the dilemma we all face, and it's the American people who suffer. They suffer at the airports. They suffer as gas prices go up because of the Iran war. They suffer because he's threatening their democracy. Now let me talk about ICE at the airports. This morning, Tom Homan from the Department of Homeland Security said ICE agents have arrived at 14 airports in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, elsewhere. Everywhere ICE goes, trouble follows. We've seen that. And it is highly likely the airports will be no exception. No one trusts that ICE is going to make things better. Patrolling airports is not in ICE's job description. It's certainly not what they're trained to do. And let's be clear, ICE agents performing the work of TSA officers are not going to make our airports any safer. It's going to make them less safe because ICE agents aren't trained in airport security. These agents aren't familiar with the layout of the airports they're walking into. They don't know the protocols or procedures in the same way TSA workers do. It's a simple solution, Donald Trump. Pay the TSA workers so you don't have to bring ICE agents in there. ICE agents are going to miss things, and that's assuming they focus on security. What if they do what they've done in other cities and start harassing travelers, asking to check papers, check their citizenship, detain them without due process, even if they are American citizens, just as we've seen them do for months now? And I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump and Stephen Miller would encourage them to do just that at the airport. In any case, ICE's mere presence is going to inflame the situation at these airports where tensions are already high. Every time a traveler walks to their gate or stands in line at security and sees an ICE agent lurking about, they're going to be reminded of Donald Trump's chaos. They're going to be reminded of Minneapolis. And they're going to think the chaos is now coming to my city too. So Donald Trump, the more you keep ICE agents at our airports, the more you will be reminding people of how much chaos and fear ICE has already caused. It's a terrible idea that could backfire on the country and on Donald Trump. Instead of trying to replace TSA workers with ICE agents, Trump should pay TSA workers right away, get Republicans to come to a deal before the chaos gets worse. Let me repeat that because it's so simple. Instead of trying to replace TSA workers with ICE agents, Donald Trump should simply pay TSA workers and get Republicans to come to a deal before the chaos gets even worse. On Iran, Donald Trump's war with Iran now enters its fourth week. There's no end in sight. Instead of giving the American people a clear plan for how to move forward, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, continues, unfortunately, to flail. Over the weekend, Trump threatened to destroy Iran's major power infrastructure if Iran did not come to the table. Then this morning, after all the bluster and all the threats, Trump appeared to retreat, suddenly claiming there are major points of agreement with the regime, even as Iran flatly denies it, and there are no diplomatic talks. What is going on here? This is not leadership from the commander-in-chief. He's either confused, lying, or both, and that's what always happens. Whatever pops into his head at the moment, he speaks. And 2 hours or 2 days later, if he has a totally contradictory thought, he says that one. That's not the way to solve our problems. That's not the way to get Iran to do what we want them to do. He must look like a flailing fool to many of them. A month ago, the national price of gasoline was $2.93 a gallon. Today, it's $3.94, up roughly $1 in a month. Who is to blame? One man, Donald Trump. And this increase in gasoline is one of the sharpest monthly spikes Americans have seen since Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Prices had been coming down. Then Trump started a war that most of the American people did not want, and he sent prices shooting back up. Enough is enough. Senate Republicans need to hold hearings and bring members of the cabinet under oath to explain exactly what's happening in Iran. We need accountability, we need transparency, but most of all, we need a strategy and an endgame, something Donald Trump's war with Iran is dangerously lacking. Yield the floor.
All right, and folks, of course, you saw at the bottom right corner of the screen, we still continue to watch the live images coming to us from the U.S. Senate floor. As we mentioned a few moments ago, the Senate tonight is expected to vote on DHS Secretary nominee Mark Wayne Mullen to lead the department following the ouster of Kristi Noem. We're still waiting to hear any sort of conclusion with a vote, so we'll bring you those updates as soon as we get them. Meantime, we'll take a quick break here on Live Impact News. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Hi, folks. Welcome back to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. Earlier today, we brought you some remarks from President Trump as he was visiting Graceland in Memphis, Tennessee. We have more of that visit for you tonight. As you could see, touring a portion of Elvis Presley's home. We'll listen in now for some of those interchanges.
Yes. So this room was added to the house in 1964. And it's really, Elvis just called it his den, but when the press first saw it, they nicknamed it the Jungle Room for obvious reasons. The furniture is all hand-carved white pine wood, and it was made by a company called Whitco. And Elvis loved Hawaii, and his dad had said that he had seen the most awful furniture he'd ever seen. And so Elvis goes shopping that night and buys the entire set. And this is what it was. But Elvis liked it because it did remind him of Hawaii.
That's good, yeah. He did well with Hawaii.
And if you look up, you'll notice there's carpet on the ceiling, a 70s decorating trend that made this room acoustically sound.
Yeah, before his time.
And Elvis
He was
actually...
way before his time.
He really was.
Carpet on the ceiling.
And Elvis actually used this room for recording. He recorded 2 albums from Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee, and 6 songs from his last album in this room. And he would normally stand over there on that platform. That was kind of his stage. And then the band and all the singers and everybody would be here in the room while they were recording.
That's good.
Yeah. One of the songs he recorded here was a song called Hurt, and another one was Unchained Melody. Yeah.
Great.
So, and that's a stereo system, and Elvis's karate nickname was Tiger.
And you can see she loves Elvis. Well, she couldn't do what she does well, right?
She's the best at what she does.
She's doing great. How long have you worked with?
36 years.
What? Whoa.
We have people come from high school. We actually had some of your people who actually wanted to give us applications. They wanted to come to Graceland so
Yes.
much. It's an amazing place to be.
36 years. And he's been here a long time, I'll tell you.
Yep.
He's been, right?
I've been, I've been developing it. When I got here.
From a young man.
Yes.
When he was a young man.
Yep.
So we all love Elvis. Media loves Elvis. It's a little different for you guys, right? You know, we're very political.
Not here.
And,
This is
not
all
here,
fun.
but not here
And
because
Elvis
everyone
was not
loves Elvis.
political.
Yeah,
well,
everyone loves
I think he was
Elvis.
political, but he kept it.
He kept it to himself. Yeah, he did.
He believed, he felt very strongly in the office. He respected the office.
Of the
he
president.
respected law enforcement. And that should be something that should be universal.
Yes, no matter who.
Yep. Any questions about Elvis, media? You like to
What's
have?
your favorite songs here of Elvis's?
But she just mentioned one of them, Hurt. Hurt's great, right?
It is.
Isn't
It is very good.
He's got so many. There's very few I don't like, actually.
Well, and
but he's got,
How Great Thou Art.
yeah. Every one of them is. He made nothing. He did nothing bad.
Elvis loved his gospel above all. Gospel was his favorite music.
What was his biggest selling song? What was his most successful song?
It's
With
Now
all-
or Never.
Oh, really?
That one sold the most, yes.
Oh, that's good. I wouldn't say the best, but that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. They're all good.
I also have a few pieces here. So this, this is Elvis's Social Security card that we found in his wallet. So the gold medal Social Security cards were not officially issued by the government, but they were a novelty item that you could actually buy then, because the paper ones that people would carry around with them would get messed up. And so this was Elvis's.
Good idea. Maybe we should do that again.
And then
Not a bad
Like a gold visa.
yeah, and then this is his bedside phone. It actually is gold plated.
I would like to hear some of those conversations, right?
Well, as you can see, it's
They
very,
would like to hear. Actually.
yeah, it's very well worn.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been through the ringer. It has its little dings on it. But then this is actually the belt that Elvis got for shattering all the city's attendance records in Las Vegas. The belt buckle has sterling silver with diamonds, rubies, and sapphires in it. And he most notably wore this not only on and off stage, but he wore it in the Oval Office when he met President Nixon.
Oh, that's a very famous visit, actually.
Yes. Yep. And this guitar that you see here, this is actually a replica of a guitar that Elvis used in his 1973 Aloha from Hawaii concert. And I was wanting to know if you would sign it for us
Oh,
to keep for the
sure.
archives.
Wow,
So
that's
you can sit here if
That's
you
a
like.
big honor.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, this will be for the archives.
Sure.
There you go. There's a marker.
Okay. Where do you want me to sign that here?
You can sign it right here if you like.
Okay.
There you go.
It's a great honor. Hold it. Has anyone tested this pen yet?
I think you're the first.
Should we just
Right
give
there.
me a piece of paper just to make sure at what level the ink is, right? It's a lot easier to do that way than ruin the guitar.
Exactly.
Okay, not bad. Okay, ready, everybody? Let's see here. Oh, that came out good. Look at that.
Yeah, that looks nice.
Wow. You never know. These are hard to sign. But that came out pretty good.
Is that the first guitar you signed?
Just about. Now, Biden couldn't do that. You'd have to send it out to be signed. Oh, look at that. That came out nice. What a beautiful guitar. Is this, so, did he play this guitar?
No, this is a replica one, but this is a replica of the one that he did play, and the one that had the karate patch on it. Elvis had 2 8th degree black belts in karate. One was in Kenpo, and that's what this
Was
patch
he
is
really
for.
good, or was it just...
Actually, he was really good. He
Okay.
started practice.
Could I have taken him in a fight?
I don't know, you might.
I think he would have been respectful enough to let you in.
Yes, he probably would.
But he and Bruce Lee really brought karate. Yeah, he would have been. But he and Bruce Lee really brought karate to the West.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's good.
Yeah,
it's very good. Well, Bruce Lee was pretty good, right? You having a good time, media? Everybody?
After
It's
Sunday.
interesting. It's a little bit different, yeah.
People make pilgrimages here from all around the world.
Yeah.
Would you imagine someday in the very distant future, people making a similar pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago?
Well, I don't know. It's something I could never say. You know, wouldn't it be terrible if it's, oh yes, so yes. Headlines, Trump, no, whatever, you know, whatever. That's a special place too. As you said, you know, in terms of people going to places, these are big, successful places, but this is, all I know is, you know, I know that all my life I've heard about Graceland. I've watched Elvis. Surprisingly, you know, because I was around with Elvis sort of in his semi-prime at least, right? And for some reason I didn't know him, but I knew just about everybody else. I knew all of them. But I don't know why with Elvis. He was a little bit locked into Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, he was in Vegas a lot.
You know, but he was a very special guy. Everybody said what a good person. Yeah, he was just a good person with a complicated life.
Yeah.
The most famous person on the planet. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the most famous person on the planet. Let's see. Who else would be more famous than Elvis? Nobody that I can think of. See?
Yeah.
Anyway, but this is fun. And I want to thank you all. This is great. We appreciate it. And hopefully you're going to get a lot of additional fans coming out here because it's interesting to see. You learn about his personality, about Elvis's personality by seeing the way he lived. And I heard that he just wanted to be back here. He didn't want to be anywhere. He could have been anywhere. Could have been, I'll name some nice fancy places like Palm Beach. He could have been anywhere he wanted to be, but he wanted to be here.
Yes.
And he was a special guy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for visiting us today.
Thank you.
All right, folks, once again, somewhat of a surprise visit by President Trump to Graceland in Memphis, Tennessee. We are keeping an eye, of course, on this DHS vote. Mark Wayne Mullen could be confirmed tonight by the U.S. Senate. We continue to see that live look. I don't know, Sean, if we got any audio on that? Okay, we can listen in for just a touch. Oh, okay. The audio for folks, just like a little background that's been coming and going throughout the evening. So we will watch, we'll continue to monitor, and as we get more information or we see a conclusion here, this vote happening, we'll bring that to you here on Live Impact. Meantime, a quick break, back in 2 minutes with more. Hi, folks. Welcome back to Live Impact News. Turning to some headlines from the Carolinas. Today, we saw North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson alongside other attorneys general, a bipartisan group of attorneys general, asking the president and the federal government to take action against drug traffickers. He says that many of them are using messaging apps like WeChat and the Chinese-based sister app Weixin to facilitate fentanyl trafficking and money laundering. Let's listen into that announcement today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Jackson, Attorney General for North Carolina. I'm joined by Alan Wilson, Attorney General for South Carolina, Chief Patterson. You all know her, and her Chief Deputy, Ryan Butler. My thanks to all of them, especially Chief Patterson, for hosting us here. We appreciate you very much. Yes, sir. We're here to discuss a couple of things with respect to the fentanyl epidemic, specifically with respect to fentanyl money laundering. About a year ago, I stood nearby here with General Wilson, and we announced an effort that we were going to undertake in combination with some other AGs from across the country, a bipartisan effort. The basic idea is a huge part of the fentanyl epidemic is propped up with money laundering. We estimate that it is to the tune of about $100 million a week. This is an enormous amount of money. And if you want to tackle the fentanyl epidemic, you have to go after the money. So we looked at where this money was flowing, and the evidence was pretty clear that one of the main places where fentanyl money laundering was occurring was in an app called WeChat. WeChat is owned by a Chinese company called Tencent. So we joined forces to publicly tell them that they had 30 days to come meet with us and to work on a series of ways that they could improve their responsiveness to law enforcement and their investigations. And WeChat said yes to that invitation, I think wisely. And we were able to announce recently, after many months of work, that we secured a number of agreements with WeChat to be more responsive to law enforcement, to be more proactive in making their encrypted spaces hostile to fentanyl money laundering, and to escalating emergency requests from law enforcement and turning those around inside of 48 hours, which is very important when it comes to investigatory contexts. That's the good news. The bad news is that Tencent also owns a company called Weixin. This is also an encrypted messaging platform. And this is also a very popular platform for fentanyl money laundering. Tencent owns both WeChat and Weixin. They are essentially sister.
Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma to be Secretary of Homeland Security is confirmed. Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made, laid upon the table. The President will be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Okay, that's right.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a closed debate on the nomination of Colin McDonald of California to be an Assistant Attorney General, signed by 17 senators.
By unanimous consent, the mandatory quorum call under Rule 22 has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that the debate on the nomination of Colin McDonald of California to be Assistant Attorney General shall be brought to a close? The yeas and nays are mandatory. Under the rule, the clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks. Gotcha. Thank you. I got you. Ms. Baldwin.
It's all good. When you sit down, or shall I? Okay.
Mr. Banks.
All right, folks. So what we just very much caught the very tail end of was the confirmation of Senator Markwayne Mullin as the new DHS secretary. You saw it was, I believe it was 54 to 45 was the vote. This was expected.
Mr. Barrasso.
And that will now place Secretary Mullin as the replacement to Kristi Noem following her ouster as DHS secretary. So it looks like there's some other business that Senate is continuing with here tonight. We'll listen and we'll continue to monitor for any updates. Meantime, we'll take another break here on Live Impact News to return likely with the attorney generals, including Jeff Jackson of North Carolina, speaking on the money laundering via fentanyl, by fentanyl traffickers, via apps. All right, welcome back, folks, here to Live Impact News. We will turn back to this press conference by Attorneys General Alan Wilson of South Carolina and North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson, speaking on their concerns with the use of phone apps, if you will, to launder money. They say fentanyl traffickers are doing this, and they are calling on the federal government and President Trump to help put a stop to this. We'll finish up here with more of Jeff Jackson's remarks.
Two is that WeChat has an international presence that is more subject to our laws. Weixin does not. In order to register for use of Weixin, you need a phone number from mainland China, but you don't need to be in mainland China to use the app. This is why it has been able to be used so effectively and insidiously for the money laundering of fentanyl proceeds. We have reached the end of our jurisdiction with respect to what we can do with Weixin. So today, we are escalating our requests. We are asking the President and the federal government to make this a national security priority. The President has already spoken at length about his belief in tackling fentanyl and has taken really positive steps in that direction. We appreciate that. We believe this deserves to be among those steps. Of all the things the President is negotiating with China, we believe that this deserves to be in the top priority. No illusions that this is the type of thing that can be handled overnight. This is going to be a major project, but we have been working for the last year with respect to WeChat, and we saw a major return on investment of our time. So we are suggesting that this become a national security priority, because the president is in the position to pull a lever that jurisdiction we are not in a position to pull. I'm going to turn it over to General Wilson now. He's not just South Carolina Attorney General. He's also a member of the National Guard down there, holding the rank of colonel. Has been in for about 30 years. And he and I see, as neighbor states, the shared devastation from the fentanyl epidemic that happens downstream of all of the money laundering that enables it. I know our state is losing people every single day to the fentanyl epidemic. South Carolina is losing people every single day. So we're not just shared in running offense on this problem, we are shared in the grief that is created when this problem is allowed to persist. And on that note, General Wilson.
Thank you, General Jackson. Appreciate you so much. I want to thank everyone for being here today. You know, General Jackson did an excellent job of kind of framing the issue for all of you as it relates to what WeChat is as an application, how it is being used by those trying to engage in illicit drug trafficking, especially the fentanyl trafficking issue. When I look at this, and by the way, I appreciate the compliment, he is also a member of the National Guard here in North Carolina and wears the uniform as a major in the North Carolina National Guard. And so people who wear the uniform see things through multiple lenses. Obviously, as attorneys general and as the chief legal officers and prosecutors of our respective states, we see this as a public safety issue. We also see this as a public health issue. But as members of the National Guard and the armed forces who wear the uniform, we also see this as a national security issue. Now, at the state level, with local law enforcement and state law enforcement, we are able to use the tools and resources available to us by our respective states to work together with local law enforcement and state law enforcement agencies. We are also willing to liaise and collaborate and cooperate with our federal partners when it comes to public health and public safety. In South Carolina, back in early 2024, the very first state grand jury case we had that year dealt with Mexican drug cartels operating drug trafficking operations in South Carolina, and there was one particular state grand jury case that was called Devil in Disguise. That was his code name. This case involved us indicting through multiple jurisdictions in the upstate of South Carolina 64 defendants. Within this one narrative, there were 6 fentanyl-related deaths. In that one case alone, we seized enough fentanyl to kill 500,000 people in our respective states. All of this, and according to my local law enforcement sources as well as our prosecutors, nearly all of it, if not all of this, nearly all of the fentanyl that was coming into our state, and I would say North Carolina as well, was done by the Mexican drug cartels in collaboration with Chinese labs being run south of the border. And so these drugs are being poured into the United States, and they're being aided in large part by Chinese-owned companies that own applications like WeChat and their Chinese counterparts, which we can't get to. And they're using these peer-to-peer apps to also transfer and launder money that aids in the transfer of these illicit narcotics into our respective states. That one case right there, 64 defendants, 6 fentanyl-related deaths, enough fentanyl to kill 500,000 people, was caught in just one case. But that is just one case. When you look at the public health component of this, in 2023, the South Carolina Department of Public Safety, or Public Health rather, identified that there were 2,157 drug overdose deaths in South Carolina. 1,550 of those were fentanyl related, meaning 72% of the overdose deaths were related to fentanyl. All this is being fed by the illicit drug trafficking trade that is being obviously supported by the Mexican drug cartels, in large part aided by the Chinese government. So for me, this is an existential threat to not only our states, but to the United States of America. As General Jackson said a moment ago, we have exhausted all the resources available to us as attorneys general, as well as our local law enforcement. We need our partners at the federal level. When I say the federal level, not just federal law enforcement agencies, but at the diplomatic level. You know, we have reached out to the administration to ask them to incorporate this as something that they need to consider when talking to China. China, as a country, is a pacing threat to the safety and welfare of the United States. This is something that I care deeply about. You know, in modern day times, there aren't conventional armies lining up on a battlefield in uniforms under banners and flags that are fighting each other. That may happen at some times, but that is no longer the main way that nation states threaten the public health, welfare, and safety of the United States. They engage what we call gray zone warfare, or that warfare that exists below the line of open conflict. They use proxy terrorist organizations, they use drones, they also use technology, they use cyber warfare, and they use what would be otherwise normal legal applications like Weixin and like WeChat as social media platforms, but they use those to facilitate a war of drugs on the United States, killing tens of thousands, if not millions, of our citizens in the United States of America, which is why the attorneys general, in a bipartisan fashion, this is not a partisan issue. This is a public health, public safety, and this is a national security issue. And so we have sent a letter along with a number of our colleagues to the Trump administration to ask the president to obviously recognize that this is an existential threat, that local, state, and even federal law enforcement are no longer adequate to take on the task of dealing with the Chinese government support of these applications that are being used by illicit drug narco-terrorist organizations. So I want to thank the Attorney General of North Carolina. I want to thank the U.S. Attorney. I want to thank local law enforcement, who you'll hear from in just a few seconds, for their cooperation with our state. We are in this together. If we don't work together to take this out, more and more of our citizenry are going to die. And that's why I'm up here with the Attorney General of North Carolina and your local law enforcement, because it's affecting us equally as bad as it is affecting you. With that, I will step aside and let our new Chief of Police here have the mic.
All right, folks, and before we get to the CMPD Chief, Estella Patterson, we'll take another break here on Live Impact. Back in 2 minutes with her remarks. Hi, folks. Welcome back to some breaking news we're following out of East Charlotte tonight. We do have reports, according to Medic, that unfortunately there has been at least one person killed after a crash on East Independence Boulevard. We're told this is happening in the 12,000 block of East Independence. So we've got that pulled up for you here on a map. You can see it's rather close to 45, not too far from the Mecklenburg County Regional Sportsplex. And actually looks like that crash is even showing up on Google Maps at this very hour. We are going to continue to follow, try to get some more information for you here. But what we can tell you once again, Medic is reporting one person has died. We're also seeing one person who's been transported from this scene being being treated for life-threatening injuries. We've got a crew on the way. We'll try to get you some live images if we can within the hour here as we continue with Live Impact until 9. If we're unable to get that in time for you, of course, we'll have this for you on the news at 11 right here on WCNC+. With that, we'll turn back to this press conference we're seeing with Attorney Generals Alan Wilson of South Carolina and Jeff Jackson of North Carolina talking about fentanyl money laundering and help they're asking for from the federal government in trying to curb some of these apps that they say are assisting fentanyl traffickers with this laundering. We're now, after hearing from the Attorneys General, going to hear from CMPD Chief Estella Patterson.
Jackson as well for your service to our states, North Carolina and South Carolina, but also to your service for our country. Both Deputy Chief Butler and I are veterans, and we care very much about our country as well. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for being here today. At CMPD, we have one defined goal, and that is keeping our community safe. Sadly, this goal is under constant threat by the fentanyl epidemic. Fentanyl is not just a drug. It is a poison that undermines the safety of our entire community and demands our most immediate and determined response, as been noted by our speakers. It is important that our community understand that no single agency can take on this challenge alone. Traffickers are operating across county, state, and national lines and borders. Our response must be just as connected, with a relentless determination to dismantle networks that are eroding families by taking lives. What you see today on this stage and up here is a powerful example of collaboration. And since taking this seat, I have talked extensively about working with all our partners to solve the concerns that we have in our community. We are partners coming together from both sides of the aisle to address a national epidemic. As the AGs have noted, we are looking closely at how digital platforms, specifically apps like WeChat and Weixin, are being used to facilitate money laundering and drug operations. We are committed to closing that digital door. CMPD, along with our partners, will continue to hold traffickers accountable while doing everything in our power to protect our neighbors and our residents. Together, we are better equipped and better informed when we work together. Together, we will save lives. And at this time, I'd like to introduce CMPD Deputy Chief Ryan Butler, who oversees our Special Investigations Bureau. He will provide more detail to you on how the fentanyl epidemic is impacting Charlotte and what CMPD is doing to address it. Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Chief. To put a scale of this fight into perspective, in 2025, almost 80% of all overdose deaths in Mecklenburg County were confirmed fentanyl related. This isn't just a statistic. It represents over 1,800 calls for service just last year for our department. But we know that number is just the tip of the iceberg. It doesn't account for individuals treated on scene by our partners at Medic or the Charlotte Fire Department, those who self-transport to the hospital, or the many more who receive Narcan from a friend or a family member and never call 911. The true reach of this poison is far wider than any police report can capture. But our strategy to combat this nationwide epidemic is multi-layered. While our patrol officers are the first to encounter these substances, our Vice and Narcotics Unit are engaged at a much deeper level, working diligently to identify the source. We are also proud to work alongside many of our federal agencies, including the DEA, FBI, HSI, and ATF. We are tracking these drugs back to their global sources. We aren't just seizing pills and making arrests, we are dismantling the financial engines that keep traffickers running. As these criminal organizations evolve, our investigative methods must evolve as well. We have discussed the use of encrypted platforms like WeChat and Weixin, and the reality is our current lack of access to these platforms significantly hinders our progress. While we are maximizing every resource currently at our disposal, truly dismantling these networks requires us to close the technological gap that still stands in our way. We remain committed to the targeted enforcement necessary to hold these criminal organizations accountable. Thank you.
Any questions? Hi.
You mentioned that President Trump's administration has been open to following up on fentanyl-related issues. Has there been any response from the White House on this so far?
Well, we're sending the letter today. So I won't hold them to quite that standard of an inside the hour. But I will say, in the president's first term, he specifically talked about WeChat. Oh, he has said he is well aware that this plays a big role in the, as Chief Butler just said, the financial engine that keeps the fentanyl epidemic running. Any other questions?
Can you talk about your lawsuit with the Next Star taken last week that you filed?
Sure, relatively new, but it has to do with the merger of two major TV stations, or rather TV companies that own a bunch of stations. So it would be the first and the third combining would be the largest TV company in the world, would reach about 80% of homes. So we've filed a lawsuit, and that is now pending, and I'll give you an update as soon as we hear back from the judge. I think we are expecting to hear something from the judge later this week. Anyone else? Thank you all for.
All right, and folks, we'll take a break here on Live Impact. That concludes, of course, the Attorney General's briefing alongside CMPD officials regarding their urging of federal action on these fentanyl money laundering actions happening on messaging apps, they say. We're going to take a break. Back in 2 minutes. We'll return with more on Live Impact News. And folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. We continue to hear from lawmakers regarding the deployment of ICE agents at some airports across the United States. Hearing now from New Jersey Senator Cory Booker on his thoughts on the situation, given also the ongoing partial government shutdown impacting several folks within DHS, including TSA agents who are going without pay.
Donald Trump's inability to simply fund the TSA. The message today is fund the TSA and get ICE out. We are in a national crisis by Donald Trump's making. He has refused to let dollars flow to the TSA that we have 7 times now on this floor of the Senate. Democrats over and over again are offering up resolutions to fund the TSA. But the reason why he's not doing it is because he wants to continue the reckless, chaotic actions of ICE. We are having a fight over ICE funding. We are not having a fight over TSA funding or Coast Guard funding or FEMA funding. We want to fund them. But instead, Donald Trump is saying, I'm going to extract maximum pain from the American people in order to try to pressure you to fund my out-of-control agency, ICE. And so what's happening today in America that should outrage everybody? He's taking this very same agency that has been bursting into our schools, into our churches, into our hospitals, into our courts, and even into the homes of Americans. He's taking that agency that is reckless and out of control and bringing them to our airports under the lie that somehow this is going to help deal with the long lines that he created in the first place. This is an outrage. We should not have an agency that America doesn't trust, an agency that literally has seen violence against Americans, an agency that is tearing away American families, tearing apart American families, and arresting and detaining Americans, and violating due process rights and civil rights. And so the frustration Americans feeling today grows. It grows because they come to their airports and they see ICE agents who have no training or specified skills to do the jobs of the TSA, who are now about to go without their second paycheck. This is mismanagement. This is corruption. This is trying to use innocent people as a pawn in a very awful political game. And so I am saying it again, now, today, fund TSA and get ICE out of our airports. I want to let one more speaker come who's been a champion in fighting for the rights of Americans, fighting for the rights of immigrants that are here legally, and fighting for the human rights and the dignity of all people within our country. I'm very grateful to bring up Amal here now to say some words on behalf of the New Jersey ACLU.
All right, before we get to our next speaker here, we'll take another break. Back in 2 minutes to resume with that speaker. I'm back here with this press conference from New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. He's expressing his concerns with the ongoing partial government shutdown impacting, in part, TSA agents, which we are seeing still going without pay at this point. Folks who are calling out now, quitting as they need to make money elsewhere. Senator Booker just introduced who we believe somebody is with the New Jersey ACLU to continue on with some thoughts on the topic. Let's listen in.
Thank you so much, Senator Booker. I share your outrage, and I share the outrage felt by countless Americans that our government continues to abuse its power and instill fear amongst the communities throughout this country. We're standing here at Newark Airport. I just noticed that right behind us is a mural that was painted by Leica Nunia Yawar, which celebrates immigrants in our country. It celebrates immigrants and the immigrant story of our country. Yet we are here today to talk about how the Trump administration is abusing its power and continuing to deploy ICE, a lawless and reckless agency, to instill fear in the lives of Americans. Never before in our country has an American president deployed armed immigration agents to the airport to inspire fear among American travelers, including families. Congress never intended ICE or other immigration agencies. Just go ahead. Yeah. Congress never intended ICE or other immigration agencies to be used as a tool of political retribution, but that's exactly what the Trump administration is seeking to do yet again. This is yet more proof of the president's intention to use ICE as his own domestic policing force, assigned at his will and on his whim, regardless of the cost to public safety, order, or our most basic rights. Once again, Trump is using immigration agents as his private security force. He's making a political point. He's not scaling back his use of ICE, even though the American people are largely against it. Look, our communities are already living in fear as a result of aggressive immigration enforcement throughout our country. Not only have we seen an escalation of raids by ICE, we've seen ICE kill in cold blood individuals, including American citizens, including in Minneapolis of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, and including Keith Porter and Ruben Martinez. These are stories of families that are devastated right now because of the impact that ICE has had on their lives. These are stories of protesters and journalists and local law enforcement agencies that have been oppressed and suppressed and violently attacked by ICE. This latest move shows that the Trump administration will use federal agents, deploying them whenever convenient, regardless of need, and whether they have appropriate training and regardless of the impact that it has on our communities. There is no need to use ICE or any federal agents, any other armed federal agents at airports. DHS has ample funds to pay TSA agents, yet it does not have the support of the president or the president's administration's political will. This latest move only shows why it's imperative that Congress creates real safeguards and reforms to stop ICE from abusing its authority and creating more fear in our communities. I'll turn it back to the Senator.
All right, and folks, our time here on Live Impact is coming to a close. Make sure you keep it here on WCNC Plus throughout the rest of the evening. We will see you for the news at 11.